In the movie Night at the Museum, historical figures like Theodore Roosevelt and Sacagawea come to life. In an entertaining way, the movie offers a blast from the past. After watching the movie, I was compelled to take a visit to the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. this past summer. While there, I viewed artifacts on the earliest human origin, the development of world cultures, and ancient and modern mammals, birds, amphibians, and sea creatures. I came to realize that all of these things had one thing in common. They were all dependent on water. From the earliest civilizations, people settled along regions where water was abundant, along lakes, rivers, and streams. As I viewed the technological advancements from wells and windmills to irrigation and pipeline, all needed for agriculture and to build cities and communities. That day in the Smithsonian, my glimpse to humankind's historical past provided me with a history lesson of water management through civilizations. Now take a moment and imagine a world without water. For some, that may be incomprehensible to imagine. We use water every day to bathe in, grow food, and on a hot summer day, we reach for a glass of ice-cold water to quench our thirst. But if we stop and think about it, we might just realize how much our lives are dependent on water. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings me to ask, why should we manage water for conservation? Well, the answer may seem pretty simple. We all need to eat. As farmers and ranchers, it is our job to supply the growing population with food. Currently, in the United States, there are 2.2 million farms, and every day, each of those farms accounts for 70% of the water usage, as reported by The Economist. This puts a bullseye on farmers and ranchers, and with the constantly increasing population becoming more conscientious of the water shortage, we will all be faced with our own watering ban, or we will all run out of water. This brings me to my first point. Water is limited. Even though 75% of the world is water, only 1% of it is usable by humans. In science class, we learned about the water cycle. Therefore, water can neither be created nor destroyed. Therefore, why manage water? Because water is a finite resource. No water means no life on planet Earth. Now let's take a look back in history. Just as if we were walking through a museum exhibit, we can see how managing water can help protect our natural resources. Through conservation practices such as cover crops, no-till, irrigation, and rotational grazing, we can get more water to filter through the soil instead of running off and taking its nutrients into rivers, lakes, and even worse, flooding and eroding communities. Therefore, why manage water? Because managing water can help protect our natural resources. Now let's take a look into the future. By the year 2050, there will be 9 billion people on planet Earth. Consider that today, 250 million people worldwide lack access to clean water. That means that more people have a mobile phone than a toilet. And even though water limitations can seem a world away, recent headlines of a contaminated drinking water crisis in Flint, Michigan creates a cause for concern and shows us that water is the basis of all living things on Earth. So, why manage water? Because our future generations will depend on it. A well-spoken Native American proverb which states, "Treat the earth well. It was not given to you by your parents, but was loaned to you by your children." In conclusion, when asked the question of why we should manage water for conservation, The answer begins with recognizing that water is a limited resource and that all living things depend on it. We can see through conservation practices such as cover crops, no-till irrigation, we can get more water to filter through the soil. And also, we have seen, most importantly, how water is the basis of all living things on Earth. As I was finishing up walking through the museum that summer day, I came upon a sign, and it was from Waldrug, and it read, "Free ice water." Although we can cherish that for a while, until we realize that the glass may not always be full, we need to take our own initiative and manage water for conservation. Just as Thomas Fuller once said, we never know the worth of water till the well is dry. Water represents life, and that is why we should manage water for conservation. Thank you.